Shalom Chavrim, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live, and something I've been watching here and kind of trying to monitor fairly closely, and this was the talk about China getting involved in the Syrian conflict. I'm looking at this, of course, from a biblical aspect, and now I think I have a little bit better idea as to why China may be getting involved in this conflict. I want to share some of that with you guys this evening, and at the same time, some of the news coming out of the United States, which lets me know, yeah, the King of the North is getting nervous about what's coming up. CNN, and of course I am not the one that likes to quote CNN, but for the sake of the fears that we can see coming out of the Pentagon, we can use their article here. It says, China likely training pilots to target U.S., Pentagon reports says. That came out today, August 17th, 2018, as we're reporting this broadcast to you this evening. And this is exactly what they're calling as China is actively deploying its fleet of long-range bombers and likely training its pilots for missions targeting the U.S., according to a new Pentagon report. Over the last 3 years, People's Liberation Army has rapidly expanded its overwater bomber operating areas, gaining experience in critical maritime regions and likely training for strikes against U.S. allied targets, the report said. Now, this really just kind of sets the stage. RT also citing that report from CNN that was coming out, showing the picture of China's long-range bombers there and all the excitement that's going on in the U.S. And of course, I go back to this whole issue of Daniel's prophecy in chapter 11. And you have to remember that the U.S. military or NATO forces are a Roman military. They are the arm of the Vatican itself. So we have, but tidings out of the east and out of the north shall affrighten him, and he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to take away many. A major battle, a battle that will cause a massive loss of life like no other time in history, from what we can see here. What doesn't necessarily say that it'll be on that type of a scale, but when he says to take away many, that lets us know a lot of people are going to die as a result of this particular war when these fears, these tidings, this messages that are coming out of the north and out of the east are reaching the ears of the King of the North. And of course, my thoughts have been that that would be Russia and China. And now we're seeing them both on the stage in Syria, or at least we're getting that type of report coming out from the latest diplomat to Syria. According to the report right here on ArmstrongEconomics.com, this is also being reported on Mint Press, several other, especially Middle Eastern newspapers are reporting this as well. It says China to support Syria along with Russia against the USA. Says here, Mr. Armstrong, you said that China would eventually send troops to the Middle East and join with Russia in Syria. China just openly told that to the newspaper. Your contacts behind the curtain are quite amazing. Stated here, Qui Quinyin was appointed the ambassador to Syria back in 2016. You are correct. On August 1st, 2018, the Chinese ambassador to Damascus, Qui Quinyin, told pro-government Syrian newspaper Al Watan that the Chinese military was ready to join Idlib in the upcoming military operation. That has been widely reported in the Middle East. China has never, as he goes on to say, never been engaged outside of its own borders. That's why they built the Chinese wall. But in this case here, they would actually send troops to get involved in that battle there. Now, China did come to the aid of North Korea, so you could say technically they have gone outside of their borders as well in a defensive posture, but never in an offensive posture. So it's something totally different and something very concerning for the U.S., but China has a reason to be concerned and a reason to join in the battle in Idlib. And this is something that a lot of people are not paying attention to. And we can kind of turn, first I want to just bring out the Mint Press. They had mentioned also that Syria may have joined the offensive in Idlib. But let's look at why China might be willing to get involved in the operation in the first place. You have to look at what's going on in the Idlib operation to begin with, and who is fighting there, where these jihadists are coming from. And it just so happens that a large number, I think an estimated of 2,000 jihadis from a province in China are actually fighting right alongside of the Turkish-backed forces in Idlib. It says here, China appears to be closely monitoring the upcoming military operation to retake rebel-held Idlib, although the surface-level analysis has attributed China's renewed interest in Syria to its campaign to engage the world more actively. China has very specific reason to monitor the consequences of Idlib operation as opposed to any other front of the Syrian war. All right, it says here, right now in Idlib there are up to 2,000 jihadi fighters who hail from China's Ristiv Xinjiang province. They belong to the Turkestan Islamic Party. You see, China is more concerned about a destabilization in their own nation. And of course, they are pro-Turkish to begin with. And we already see what happened in Turkey with this staged coup that the CIA was involved in order to make it look like that Turkey becomes the hated enemy of the Middle East and now can garner all the support of their own allies, when in reality, my personal opinion, I should say, is that it was a staged coup. But China doesn't want to become another Syria. They don't want to become another Ukraine. They don't want their nation destabilized. It's already, we're seeing the trade wars going on between the U.S. and China, but China is also trying to protect their own interests. Now, nonetheless, China is a communist nation. They're also an ally of Russia, right? And we can see this because China, according to Al Jazeera, state media defends Xinjiang Muslim crackdown. Boy, these names are tough to pronounce. More than 1 million Uyghurs are estimated to be in a detention and counter-extremist centers in China's far west. These are those very same fighters that are fighting over there in Idlib, 2,000 strong right there. But there have been, I guess, an estimated like 1 million of these Muslim fighters, or in this province here of Western China, have been rounded up and put into re-education centers. You know, that kind of sounds a lot like what the jihadists were doing in Syria to the Syrian people that would not fight against the government, putting their people into re-education centers, deprogramming, reprogramming. It's become absolutely nuts what's going on in the world today. But China is very much afraid of what could happen in their own nation. And as a result, not only are they cracking down in the West with some very unconventional means, but they're also sending their troops to fight over there in Idlib, I guess, to take out their own thugs of that are the jihadis fighting against the Syrian government. So they're taking this very personal, and they're also probably wanting to make sure that Turkey cannot spread any more of its influence towards China's own border. After all, Turkey may claim to be an enemy of the U.S. right now, but they're still a NATO partner. And that's a concern for China as well. So we go back to the whole process of the biblical narrative, right? Tidings out of the east and out of the north shall affrighten him, or you could translate that, causes this king of the north great stress. Why? Because he's not really sure what Russia and China may end up doing together when they join forces. There's been talk before about China's Navy joining Russian Navy, but that's been quite some time back. Haven't really seen anything come anew of this as of yet. But this troops on the field can certainly spell something altogether different. Not to mention that we've already seen where the biblical prophecy up here, when you get around verse 40, in the time of the end shall the king of the south pushing him, technically not pushing at him, but pushing with him, Imo Melech HaNegiv, the king of the south, which is the king of the Negev desert. That's not the word we use. We don't use Negev for the word south in Hebrew, but nonetheless, it's in the biblical narrative, which lets me know that the king of the south, or the king of the Negev, which would be an Israeli leader, is working with the Vatican itself, which I believe is the king of the north that runs the NATO military operation. Interesting. So, anyway, he comes over him like a whirlwind, and notice it's never against. It's not against. That's what you have to look at in the Hebrew right here. There he comes. He comes. Comes to the lands there. So it's not that the king of the north, when it says the king of the south, as they translate that, pushing at him. If the king of the south was pushing at the king of the north, you would think the king of the north would come down there just to destroy Israel. That's the way they're doing it in English, but that's not the way it is in Hebrew. They're actually working together, and that's why you see that he comes over him like a whirlwind with chariots and with horsemen and everything to do what? To destroy all the nations in the Middle East. I have a feeling that this has more to do with what's going to happen in Iran than it does with Syria. Syria was a jihadi force. What would cause the U.S., though, to really come in that heavily over Israel and take out Iran could be because of a Chinese and Russian influence together. They may be very concerned that if China gets their troops into Syria and they get too much embedded in there, this could turn into a much larger conflict, and they may figure that this is the time to deal with the issue is now rather than later. So there's why I think it frightens him to deal with China and Russia simultaneously in the event these two nations could get involved into this conflict. But rather, he will come in with a great fury, like a storm, a whirlwind over the top of Israel as he passes through. Now, and it makes sense too if you think of this biblically, because when you have the king of the south or the king of the Negev desert, see the Melech HaNegiv, okay? He's the king of the Negev desert. The Negev is in Israel, all right? And he is pushing with him, Imo, with him. He's pushing with him to do this war. And it has truly been the Prime Minister Netanyahu that has been pushing at the NATO alliance to take and battle against the Iranian forces, right? So that's where I think we're sitting at right now. But everything is setting up. And we are definitely, as you get on down to verse 44, it is certainly setting up. The whole Middle East is set up for exactly that. And of course, then you get this, like in the case of Libya, the Ethiopian shall be at his steps. Egypt, he has control over Egypt. That's already happened. The U.S. already has control of that. But then again, you got to remember, the U.S. is only part of a NATO force, and the NATO forces fights for Rome. It's just like the other day when I was making a statement about the apostle. Of course, the apostle and apostolic are two different words, but they still have a very similar meaning. One is message, the other one is word, and of course, the apostle document originated at The Hague in 1961 as an international document, but it was also, The Hague was created in majority of the creation of The Hague was brought about by the Vatican itself. So the Vatican, The Hague, NATO forces, all this heavily influenced by Rome in order to be a military for Rome to conquer. Basically to go about the Crusades around the world and to bring about their form of beliefs. And I think the next one it'll be precedented, no doubt, in the future, is going to be that they want to have a socialist worldview or a fascist worldview. Interesting. That's another issue altogether. I won't get into that today. But we are definitely looking at some very interesting things as the news is beginning to let us know that there is trouble in the land. And of course, it's been a lot of issues about And just think about it. If you go back and think about all the news about Russia, Russophobia, 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 now more and more China, 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 China. All right, think seriously, think logically just for a moment. The two big nations, the two big boogeymans for the West is China and Russia. China and Russia, north and east, north and east. Scripturally, think about it. And they're the ones that make everybody in NATO scared to death. Wow. Maybe we have a biblical prophecy about to unfold. Very interesting. All right, guys, listen, we have just a couple of news points here real quick, or not news, but events to let you know. We are also working on Kansas, a conference in Kansas. I'll have the information up for you soon on our website. I did post on Israeli News Live about the conference. Let me just pull the website up for you real quick. If you go to Israeli News Live now, .org or .co.il, either one, it'll redirect you to .org if you go there. You'll see the Orlando conference here, but just scroll down here on the right side of your page. Here we go, Nashville. I don't know why they pop up in different locations. Nashville or Lebanon, Tennessee Conference, 14th through the 15th September 2018, all right? You guys know about that. The HPC Center, it's hyperlinked on there to where you can go and you can register for that conference. That will take you to their website. I believe it will. Let's just see. Yes, it does. And of course, scroll down and you can learn how to register for this conference here. We are working with a friend of ours in Kansas right now, and for a meeting on, what is it, October the 2nd, or no, November the, I'm sorry, I'll get it right in a minute. I think it's December the 2nd. Let me get it right. Yeah, December the 2nd, this year, 2018, in Kansas City. This particular event that we're going to be putting together, we'll have it up on our website soon for you. We have the capacity to seat up to 500 people. We don't know exactly how we're going to do this one as of yet, and it will be a one-day conference, but it will be from morning to evening. And I'll be getting you some more information about that conference as well. When I talk about we want to go to all 50 states, I begin to realize that in reality, I know that we can't do all 50 states in the United States and the information we're trying to share. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to hit targeted areas that will draw people from close by, like in the state that you're in. Let's say, for example, like in Nashville. Let me just pull up on the maps real quick, guys, and I won't hold you much longer. I apologize for keeping you guys like this. Well, doesn't do good to go to Syria, does it? Let's do like this here, U.S. Here we go. All right. So let's take, for example, in Nashville, Tennessee. All right. We're looking at Nashville. Kentucky, and pretty much anywhere in Tennessee, maybe people from northern Alabama, northern Georgia. This is what we're looking at, is trying to figure out where those of you that would be somewhat close relatively in the areas there. So we're hoping to pull from Kentucky, of course, all across Tennessee, northern, say from Birmingham north, Atlanta area, stuff like that, to where it's not too bad of a drive for you to come. You can do it within, half a day's journey, and we can pull from there, all right? So we're going to try to take and start pinning it on the map to see where we're going, what we can cover, and what's going to be the smartest way to do this. Now, we're looking at Kansas. I forget the name of the city where that's going to be in Kansas, but I'm thinking, and it may be Kansas City, Kansas. I don't remember exactly which part of Kansas that'll be in. But I'm sure we can pull as far away as St. Louis, Missouri, Oklahoma, maybe even the northern part of Arkansas, and so we'll look at that. We'll try to drop down into Texas later. I'm not sure exactly when we could do Texas, but we'll try to see if we can do that. That's what our plan was originally. So that would be an idea there. And then eventually we want to get up over into, let me back out on the U.S. here so we can see this better. Whoop, too much backing out. So we're just working on these things the best we can. It's a lot of work to put these things together, and a lot of just a lot. Believe me, it's a lot. This has to go on. The deposits have to be made, things like that, to reserve the places we're going. Except for Nashville, the congregation there that was kind enough to put that together for us. We're a little bit more hesitant, though, about having places put together for us, and the reason being, you will find out in the meeting. You'll know why then. It's very serious. Had a very interesting thing happen here. I will not say what happened, but we're facing some very real threats with what's going on and what we're sharing with you guys. We will try to go up, though, somewhere maybe upstate New York or New York City, in that area there. We'll try to do a meeting up around in that place there. I am working with one friend of mine up in Michigan for a possible meeting around the Detroit area, and that might help people from Indiana and Ohio to be a part of that. Michigan, Detroit, and Ohio. So we'll try to do that. And then we're going to try to get out towards the Midwest there, maybe South Dakota, something like that. If we could go into South Dakota, and that might help from people from North Dakota, etc., stuff like that. We are going to be in Portland, Oregon area for the West Coast, and I don't know if we can get down to California, but maybe we will try to do something around Sacramento eventually in the process there, and maybe even go towards Utah in a meeting there that could pull from Colorado. Maybe we can kind of split it as far as the meeting in Kansas pulling from one part of Colorado and Utah pulling from the other. These are all speculative right now. I'm not really sure exactly how we're going to do this. We do have friends up in Canada, and we do want to make it up that direction there, maybe up into Montreal, something like that. I don't know as of yet there. We will update you as soon as we can make the arrangements of what we will do next and whereabouts we'll be doing those things there. Anyway, do support the work we're doing. Your support is greatly needed, especially at this time with trying to put together these conferences, and we can't do it without you. So also this weekend we'll be trying to do another meeting for, another message on Patreon, because I keep saying things here on Israeli News Live that I know is very risky, and I hold back quite a bit because of that. But I'm also hearing that Patreon is some people are getting hit there as well. We're going to try to find a different way to load our source information on Patreon, though, to minimize that. And we are also looking in the future about being able to run directly from our website itself. So we're trying to make headway in every area we possibly can in the event that we get targeted in the near future. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Don't forget to visit the website. IsraeliNewsLive.org is our website name. You can visit there. You can donate online safely, or patreon.com/Israeli News Live. I'll put that down in the description for you. You can join there. You can also help support the ministry there if you choose to do so. And of course, we always have our address if you want to, got the screen thing going there. If you want to help support the ministry by mail, you can do so at 8297 Champions Gate Boulevard, number 442, Champions Gate, Florida 33896. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Erev Tov.